You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey everyone, it's Alan Shimel, and we are at KubeCon, right here on the floor at our Techstrong booth, giving you a special edition of Techstrong Gang with a couple of Techstrong Gang members, some old, some new, some blue, and me. We've got a lot to talk about today. Let me introduce you to our gang members. On the far right, well, you know him. He's everyone's favorite Yankee fan, Mike Vizard.
Hello.
Secondly, making his debut on the Techstrong Gang, though he's my co-host on our Platform Engineering Show podcast, which you should check out. And he wore that little special sticker right for me here, DevOps is dead, trick or treat. He keeps that sticker on. He may not make another gang. My good friend, Luca Galente from platformengineering.org.
Yeah,
Luca, welcome.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, she's been on hiatus a little bit.
Yes.
But we've got her in here live at the KubeCon, our good friend Hope Lynch. Hey Hope, how are you?
Doing well, Alan.
So
Thank you
good
for
to have
having
you back in the saddle here. So, guys, we're at KubeCon. I guess we got to talk cloud native, CNCF. Mike, what are we kicking it off with?
Well, you got to pay attention here because these numbers are kind of like dealing with the Department of Labor statistics. So
do we got to fire the statistics?
it may come to that. I don't know. So CNCF put out its usual report about the size of the ecosystem at KubeCon, and they're saying that the cloud native community is 15.6 million developers. But they changed how they count that a little bit because what they're saying is these are anybody who's using any one product or project from the community as a whole. So when you read the numbers, they also say there's 9.3 million back-end developers. But underneath that, because the base is somewhat different, they're also noting that the percentage of folks using containers is down and the percentage of folks using Kubernetes is down from like a high of 36% of the community now down to 30%. So in that, there's definitely been some softness, but you have to also kind of put that up against the total of the numbers so that, because it's not a pure apples to apples comparison. But I don't know, I'm going to start with Hope here. What are you seeing out there in terms of container adoption, Kubernetes? What are the folks talking about?
So what the people I have spoken to are talking about is that Kubernetes is still very, very hard, right? And I think there is a certain amount of just exhaustion on the part of some, right? And when you consider the economic pressure a lot of companies are under and the returns they want to see, if they have technology that their teams are complaining about, that's not getting configured, that's not paying off, they probably are less likely to make continued investments, right? There are still organizations that are all in on Kubernetes, but I know for certain products I've discussed, people have said, if I need to use Kubernetes, I'm not going to use the product, right? So it is actually a blocker for some adoptions.
Yeah. There was some good news in the numbers for folks like you because they also said, well, I think it was like 54% of the folks using cloud native technologies are also using DevOps, but they also pointed to IDP usage is up. So from like 23% to 27%. And in my mind, IDPs is code word for platform engineering. So, it looks like that's, catching hold. I mean, a quarter of the population, does that ring true to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, it's growing a lot. The whole platform engineering space. We've seen, I was just talking about this morning. Like, I think back in 23, there was a prediction by Gartner that by 2026, so in 2 months from now, we would have like 80% of organizations having some sort of platform engineering initiative in place. Well, and DORA, the latest DORA report actually came out like a month ago, saying that actually 90% of organizations they surveyed already today have a platform in place. So even, I think like a forecast that seemed very optimistic back in 23, even to the enthusiasts like me in the in the market, in the industry, it was actually beaten. So I think that speaks volumes, to the fact that, yeah, platform engineering, keeps being on the rise. But, going back to the Kubernetes thing, I think there is also an interesting, like especially here at KubeCon, a lot of people, there's still, I think, like some confusion around like what exactly platform engineering is and what's the level of context that we're talking about here. Because I had conversations today with a lot of people that are like, hey, well, I run Kubernetes, I'm in charge of Kubernetes, so I'm running the whole platform. And it's like, yeah, Kubernetes obviously is a platform in itself, but is also not always the whole story, right?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
take a crack at that for us. What is the difference between platform engineering and DevOps in your mind? Because some folks would say platform engineering is a DevOps mulligan. We didn't get it right the first time. We're trying it again.
Yeah. Well, I think like, DevOps ultimately was really about, shifting left and this core tenet of like, hey, you build it, you run it, right? Which I think is something in an industry where we saw a huge increase in complexity and also in the size of the engineering organizations, right? In the last like 10, 15 years since DevOps became a thing, some organizations went 10 or 100x in some cases in terms of really the size. And then, not to mention the complexity. You just need to look at the CNCF landscape to see just like the explosion of complexity, right? So in a world that's like so much bigger and so much more complex, this idea of like, hey, you're responsible for doing everything, and shifting everything left to the developer doesn't really work. And, we talked about it in our platform engineering podcast before, right? Like ultimately you have to, you have platform engineering really it's sort of like I think the industrialization moment in a way of our market, right? Of our community, where we're going beyond this traditional role of like, okay, now we shift everything onto a persona and actually back to, hey, actually it makes sense probably to specialize, right? And have assembly lines, which are the golden paths essentially, right? And so I think it's, we ran this like campaign a few years ago, and this idea of like, hey, DevOps is dead, and that was definitely like inflammatory, maybe too much so. But certainly I think you have seen. I think you can think of platform engineering as an evolution of DevOps, and I think a good one.
But in some organizations, though, they still have separate DevOps teams and a platform engineering team that is enabling all of them. So it's really not an either or proposition.
No?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, I hear anecdotally it goes like this. We had a full stack team of developers that beat up the IT ops team that deployed Kubernetes, and then they stuck them in the corner somewhere and let them run Kubernetes. Then the IT ops team looked at Kubernetes and said, wait, this thing scales. This is great, and I can centrally manage it. And then they went to the rest of the developers and said, we want you to write on Kubernetes. And that's when everybody said, say what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I can see that happening.
I got to give you Shimmy's take on this. All right?
The
I got-
famous Jimmy thing.
Yeah, I got to throw some stones all around here.
Love it.
First of all, Mike, you never lead talking about size and softness. They just don't go. Okay? Just a little less.
There's a lot of medicines out there for that.
I get it. But size and softness, this is a hard problem too. But that being said, yes, there's no doubt that there's more platform engineers now than there were 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
And there's more people who are involved in platform engineering, including SREs, including security people, including DevOps engineers, and including good old-fashioned sysadmin ops. But the point I think we're trying to make is platform engineering getting a bigger piece of a shrinking pie, or is the pie getting bigger still? And platform engineering is getting its share, as is DevOps, as is Argo and GitOps, all of these places. I think the thing we've got to confront, and this is the God's honest truth, no matter how long the line was to get in this sport, is that this show has been flat in America now for 3 years.
Yeah.
It isn't growing. 60% of the people who come here, it's their first time here.
Yeah.
It's their first time here.
Mm-hmm.
How come they're not coming back?
Yeah.
The show's not growing. 60%, this is math, this is simple arithmetic right here.
Yeah.
60% of first timers, the show doesn't grow. Next year, it's the same size show. It's 60% of first timers.
Mm-hmm.
We're losing.
Well, are we? Because I would argue maybe the fact that they're first timers is a good thing because it shows that maybe there's new
shows
blood in the
People
platform.
are coming in, but where are the old people going? Are they going to Platform Con?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course he says.
But you know something else that I thought of when I came to the show? I think the mix of vendors, sponsors has changed over the years.
Yes.
In the beginning, it was very, very focused on a direct Kubernetes connection.
Right.
Now it is more like a general technology conference.
Yeah.
That's true because Kubernetes has been embedded into so many different things. It's in Argo, wherever else you use, and there's so many abstractions above it that you may not see it. So all these people are here
Yeah.
selling something that sits on top of Kubernetes.
Well,
Or other stacks too, right? Like I think you look at the fastest growing. I think or like the biggest project right after Kubernetes is Open Telemetry, right? There's like so many observability folks, there's so many security folks, and I think it speaks to your point, Hope, of like really the maturity that is also increasing. So
it's also moving devs to ops.
yeah, exactly. Which I think is, more maturity, and I think in a sense you could say quality over quantity also of the conversation.
But to your point about that, so people are using OpenTelemetry for things other than Kubernetes. So that's beyond cloud native.
Observability is a world unto itself, independent of Kube.
It is.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
It is.
But here's the thing about Kube. First time I saw Kube in action was in Austin at the DockerCon, 2016 or so. It was friggin' hard. And you know what? Here we are, KubeCon 2025. It's still friggin' hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not gotten easier. And I think to a certain extent, it reminds me when HTML first came out, I was no coder, but I learned HTML and I fancied myself a software engineer.
Nearly famous.
Right, nearly famous. That was before Shimmy said.
Right.
But here's the thing. All of a sudden, they came out with CSS and JavaScript, and I was back to just sitting here by the camera. My coding days were over.
Short stint.
Right. Yeah. It's a short timer. But
Blaze of glory.
But with Kubernetes, right? If you had that skill set, you still are in high demand because it's still so damn hard.
Yeah.
And so have they made it hard on purpose?
There's an argument about that. One of the things that no matter how much I squint at that landscape that you were talking about, I can't find the one that says AI agent for Kubernetes.
And no, and why not?
it's got-
Why
it's
not?
got- yeah.
It's got to be coming.
Yeah.
But I'll put.
Half of the boots here promise it already,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a comment about that too. But let me just make one other thing. The P in Kubernetes platform is not the same P in platform engineering.
Right.
They're different P's. And people who think that because they're running Kubernetes, that somehow they've got themselves a platform for developers to work on or the rest of the, youth workforce, I think are delusional at some level, right? It's not. It's not the same. You mentioned AI though. I got to tell you the truth. The last 2 years of KubeCon, whether here or in Europe, it was all AI all the time, just like every other conference we go to. I'm seeing less AI here today. I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing less AI.
There's two flavors of the conversation. There's AI for Kubernetes in the stack, and then there's AI workloads running on Kubernetes. I see a lot of conversation about AI workloads on Kubernetes. I'm not seeing a lot of AI for the stack kind of conversation.
Yeah.
So what about AI for IDPs?
Yeah, I was just gonna say we see the same exact thing, right? Like platforms for AI or AI for platforms, and AI for platforms ultimately is about embedding LLMs and having conversational interfaces for developers to the platform. That's cool, but that's not gonna like
It's
change
not
your
gonna fit up
life.
with
Yeah.
anybody.
Whereas I think, platforms for AI is essential. We were talking on the show the last couple of weeks, right? Like really how, now you have all this like MIT studies and like horror stories of like, all this like AI pilots failing in the enterprise AI. Well, I think a lot of it is really because you don't have an underlying solid foundation and platform that lets you go beyond this initial like impressive demo and into day 2, day 100 operations.
If you go visit Red Hat down there, they're talking about now you can use Lightspeed to talk to more than one Kubernetes cluster. Someday soon.
Someday.
Your pause was
You know what?
there.
Someday soon. On that note, let's pull the plug on this one. We're going to come back. We have our next segment. What's it on, Mike?
We're going to talk about AI workloads on Kubernetes.
AI workloads. Imagine that. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're going to have a little chat now about, AI workloads on Kubernetes. As promised, the folks at the CNCF are trying to build a standard framework for deploying these workloads on Kubernetes so that ensures that they're portable. This turns out to be a big issue because everybody who's built these things are little tiger teams that build something that has a lot of proprietary extensions in it, and these things may not scale and they may not be easily distributed, and there's all kinds of reasons that are driving a conversation around this, not the least of which is this CUDA framework from NVIDIA, which is locking everybody in. And that's kind of the backstory of this whole movement in the CNCF, because this is the first step to trying to figure out how do we create a framework that is actually truly portable, and that's where the backroom conversations are happening these days. But we've been talking about this in the NVIDIA and CUDA before, and it's becoming an issue with folks, and the problem is like the CIOs and the IT people understand the issue, but the people who wrote the software in the first place were like, we did what? Locked into who?
But isn't CUDA open source? Open source?
It's open source, but it's led by NVIDIA, and basically they own it.
Not part of a foundation.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So, Luca, let me ask you, have you seen CUDA in platform engineering yet?
No, not that much. Not that much. I think, we're seeing a lot of, the fastest growing segment in our community right now is data engineers. But they're more approaching it for, I think, to your point, right? From an infrastructure first angle. So they're not necessarily the people that are the users. And so there are like CUDA heavy and, they're not the ML ops people. They're not the ML engineers, rather the data scientists, right? They are the kind of like the infra for AI people. And so we're not seeing too much CUDA yet, no.
Pope, thoughts?
So where I recently have seen conversations about CUDA is Linux OS and CUDA integration, which was, a step forward.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't solve the other problems, really, that we're discussing, right? Because that is at the OS layer. Above that, it's not really going to have an impact.
But part of this conversation is on the assumption that there's going to be a separation between the people who train AI and the people who deploy the inference engines, which are smaller. And that's going to lend itself more to IT ops, platform engineering teams. And they're the ones that are concerned about the portability and and how distributed these things are. So this is an evolving conversation in my mind, but I think going into 2026, this is going to become a bigger hot button issue.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it is, but just again, a couple of thoughts on this. Shimmy thoughts. Number one, $5 trillion is enough. I don't want to see them taking over any other markets. All right. And if they want to donate CUDA to the CNCF or the LF, I'm first in line getting behind it. But Hello Free's over first.
You know who's
Right.
not here giving a keynote speech? It's the only conference in the world that he hasn't given a keynote speech at. Jensen Huang.
That's exactly right. I didn't see one motorcycle jacket. Right? So I think this is, time to throw up stay away from me, vampire. I would prefer not to see CUDA become a de facto standard here to deploy this. I'd prefer not to see CUDA become ingrained into Backstage or any IDPs or platform engineering in general. I think, we've got to be really careful of a lock-in when you got one company that's $5 trillion market cap. And, I grew up.
So Chinese open source competitor then?
Maybe.
Well, no, but why can't the LF? Why can't the LF and a consortium
Yeah.
come up with a competitor?
So I think it would be safe to assume that they are thinking about that very issue. Then the question becomes, are they going to pull together AMD and everybody else into something to build a unified thing that forces NVIDIA in? Or will NVIDIA come around and say, look, we're going to give CUDA to you guys, but we're going to want to have our
Like I said,
thumb on
pixels will fly first.
But my mind continues to go back, though, to what you were talking about in the beginning, portability, right? My mind says, if that problem can be solved, great problem to solve, but it seems like a really hard problem. I mean, something in me just does not believe it,
You might assume that there are a lot of primitives in CUDA that are optimized specifically for GPUs versus other processors.
Yeah.
Which I also think is part of this conversation, because I think people are saying, I don't need to run GPUs for every inference workload, and I may not even want to use it for training because it's too hard to find them, they're costly, they're expensive, and there's other ways of skinning this cat.
I agree with that. Now, to be fair, though, if you were to talk to Jensen Huang and the NVIDIA team, they do have a vision that CUDA is not just for training.
No.
No, yeah, it's for inference as well.
It's for inference. And I would speculate that it's not just even for inference, but it's for AI-enabled applications wherever they are.
Yeah.
Including the CPUs they're building and the DPUs that they're building. So they very much have a processor.
There's a path to go to 10 trillion.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. I mean, the reality right now is they're the leaders by far. They have the entire stack. They're controlling the entire ecosystem. So it's going to take a while. But I think what we've learned from Google open source and Kubernetes is that, the people behind, and I think this is what China is doing really well. They're behind. And so they're just open sourcing, catching up really fast.
Did we learn anything from those recent price hikes from Broadcom on VMware? Did we? Come on, think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called lock-in. Lock-in.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that is when you look at people who are walking away from VMware, they don't cite price necessarily as the biggest issue. It's about freedom, about moving to the cloud and stuff like that. So
I think they cite not the actual cost, but the notion that someone could do that to them is what they're trying to put a blocker in for.
Freedom.
So it's a breach of trust, really, was what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think one of the great things about this conference, about the CNCF, and they're not perfect. God knows. CNCF is not perfect. I got to figure out how to make the lines work better. But one of the great things about it is where else can Broadcom sit down with AWS, with Microsoft and Google and agree to cooperate on an orchestrator or a platform or on GitOps or on observability or IDPs or any of these things. That's what makes this special.
Yeah.
I think we're just waiting for the United States government to show up as a shareholder in certain processor companies and kind of sort this out for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I interviewed the CMO of SUSE today, and we spoke a little bit about digital sovereignty, which they're very big on, right? They're a European company. They're building European data centers with European support staff. independent from whether it's the U.S., China, or anyone else. This is an important issue to the EU. It's an important issue here too,
Yeah.
right? You want to be free from the government sticking their hand into your pockets. You got to think about that.
So if the GPU and the software framework came from a U.S. company, you're pretty much out of luck when it comes to sovereign clouds. So you got to come up with a different answer.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they do. Make no mistake, they do. So just more fans are from this.
Of course.
More Shimmy fans.
Shimmy.
So CUDA is a very complex piece of software. This is not going to go away tomorrow.
No. But then what's the solution? You know, so you mentioned this, like, you know, the portability and the Kubernetes aspect, but then isn't there a risk here in, like, you know, again, going back to this, you know, Kubernetes is, you mentioned, like, flatlining a little bit, and there are people that are seeing, you know, some limitations. So, like, are we trying to attach a much bigger trend to something that's, like, smaller and has some limitations just because it's the core of this community over here?
It's true. There are a lot of AI workloads running on Kubernetes, but it's still early days.
Yeah.
Very.
It may not be the platform for AI workloads. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that's the mission of the CNCF,
Exactly.
to make sure that it is the platform for AI workloads. And that may well determine whether this thing ever grows more or not.
Right. It's
But
that-
that's the bet. They should bet on that.
Right, that's
And if
the
it
bet.
works, great. If it doesn't work, then
Agreed.
it's not working already.
Right. But the only people in the world that are more afraid of Kubernetes than developers are data scientists. So go figure.
There is that. All right.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. I think we've hit this one because it was too close to the first one. We're going to come back. We've got our third segment here on the gang today. Mike, what is our third segment?
We're going to talk about AI, maybe or maybe not replacing SREs. We'll see.
AI SREs. I've done 2 interviews today on that. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Hey folks, we're back and we're going to have a little chat about AI and SREs because, well, at the show, I think there's at least 3 vendors talking about AI and SREs here, at least that I met, Devtron, Cosley, and Commodore. And I think there's a couple of more floating around. I know you had some conversations.
I spoke to Cosley and another one about AI SRE. They changed their name, Mesmo.
Mesmo.
Asthma. Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, on the face of it, you can have a little conversational chat with this AI thing that'll help you figure out whether or not, I don't know, how to fix an incident faster or why my code sucks and this isn't running. And, you know, that seems harmless in itself. But as always, I also feel like maybe these folks are overpromising and under-delivering somewhat because anytime I see the word AI, everybody says, it's going to do these amazing things. And last time I checked, all these LLMs, they're mimic engines at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Hope,
Yeah.
what are you seeing? What's real?
For SREs, I honestly feel they are such a critical part of any organization that immediately trusting it to AI feels to me like a huge risk, right? If there are, like with developers, small repeatable tasks that are low risk that it could take on where failure would not be catastrophic, fine, let them have at it. Or sending alerts, working with observability, integrating alerts, that would be fantastic. But I just can't imagine today with the current state of AI, right, that it could replace any good SRE in an organization, and especially if you go to organizations that are highly regulated, right? The exposure they have for breaches, for lack of alignment to regulations, the penalties are enormous. They are absolutely enormous. And if I were weighing that risk, I wouldn't take the risk. I might say, let's look at it again in 10 years, right?
10 years is a long time.
It is a long time, but finance and regulatory bodies often move pretty slowly.
Yeah.
Luke, are SREs one of the biggest growing segments in the platform community, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are they there because they're afraid AI is going to replace them?
No, I don't think so. I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? Like AI for platforms or platforms for AI. I think here again, it's actually, well, the question is not necessarily, well, can AI replace SREs, but what can SREs do to make sure that AI is actually, more available, scalable, and actually enterprise grade. And again, move it beyond this initial like demo thing that's like cute, but doesn't actually scale.
I think Hope has it spot on. I think most SREs are like, yeah, if you can get rid of some of the scut work I hate doing using AI, great. Like generate a report for what I just did, super. But the minute it becomes, a question of like trusting it to execute a task that's, mission critical, I think most SREs are going to be like, no, I'm going to do that myself because last time I checked, they won't come and fire the AI agent. They're going to come and fire me.
Right, right. Because if you've played with AI at all, it will give you an answer and you look at the answer closely and say, is this the answer? Oh, you're absolutely right. That's wrong. And if no one is making those checks, you are now adding additional overhead to the job of the SRE. You are decreasing their satisfaction with their work. It's a huge risk to me.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, let me give you a Shimmy's take on this one. I hear all this stuff with the AI, and I'm reminded of when I was a little child, and we all probably heard this when we were small children, right? When you did something wrong or something, your parents or mom would say, you better be good, otherwise the boogeyman's going to come take you away, right? This one's coming to take you away. That one's coming to take you away. AI is today's boogeyman. If you don't do your job good, or you don't mind your P's and Q's, or you don't work cheap enough, or you're going to be replaced by AI. I'm here to tell you the good news. AI is not replacing you today. But like we said before, the person who is replacing you is the person who uses AI better. So my whole take on this AI SRE thing is, no, SREs aren't being replaced by AIs. SREs are being supplemented by AIs. And if you're an SRE who learns how to supplement your worth with AI, you're going to be more valuable. If you're an SRE who says, come back in 10 years, you better go get on unemployment right now.
I don't think the SRE would be making that call, but I'm with you.
All right.
I kind of look at it this way, though, and sometimes I wonder, it's like, by the time I check the AI's homework, I could have done it myself, and I'm not looking at it to see, is this thing overly verbose? Is this thing flawed?
You got trust issues. You got trust issues.
But there's a long training path there. And you have to stick with it and train it and tune it and train it.
This really comes down, do you trust the AI?
Well, and combine, I think, because essentially what AI is, right, like LLMs, right, when we're talking as LLMs, it's just this like probabilistic, but you can, and until now we've done everything with this like deterministic approach, and really I think it's about combining those two things, because the problem is like when I see like a lot of companies building all this like pretty complex AI driven pipelines, and it's like one model checking another model, blah, blah, and that makes a lot of sense. But it's like some simple, there's a lot of things where you already have all the rules, just like have a deterministic step of that pipeline and just complement it,
Yeah.
And so I think like the two things together at the end of the day is the more powerful thing.
I will tell you what every SRE does know. It's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be wrong at scale.
Yeah. Yes.
At AI scale.
At AI scale is eventually.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think again, this whole AI SRE thing is just another boogeyman. It's just another, you better behave yourself, otherwise, you're not getting nothing for Christmas.
Yeah.
Santa Claus isn't coming.
So first it was developers, now it's SREs. Who's next?
Security people, journalists.
Lawyers.
Who? lawyers, doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They're all, they're all in the crosshairs.
Because
Yeah.
Jimmy has a lawyer pass.
Yeah.
Hey, I wouldn't mind. You know what Shakespeare said? Kill them first. Anyway, hey, I think
I
that's
think we
gonna
should end on that note.
yeah,
right,
that's gonna wrap us here for Techstrong Gang. Hey, we are going to be live all week on Techstrong TV from here in KubeCon. We'll also be taping gang shows all
When are we getting the jackets, the leather jackets?
Oh, you
That's how
get-
you
you
get
get-
Jensen
you
Young
gotta
to
be
come,
here.
you know? It's like you have the gang
We're
jacket.
going to get you a gang, but we gave your jacket to the AI.
Okay.
Next time. No.
Do we have gang colors?
Because you're an imaginary fan.
Well, we're going to have to, we'll have to work that. We're going to get your jacket with a DevOps
Yes.
thing right over here, though. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, enjoy Techstrong Gang. Enjoy Techstrong TV. If you're watching this, you're probably not at KubeCon. I'm sorry. It's a great show, but we're going to do our best to bring it to you. Until then, though, this is Alan Shimel for Techstrong. We're out.